Happy Tears Day, and today I want to talk about the Golden Land. Now, it's not really something that happens too often, and it's also something I've kind of been exploring. And as someone who lucid dreams, I've mentioned previously that a goal to try and experience is to have your almost like have your hand on the steering wheel, if you like, of the dream, but to also let the dream flow without the need to exert control over it. I don't know. It's, I suppose, pushing a barrier of some sort of when it comes to your personal power. Now, last night I experienced a special moment, shall we say. And that's why the episode, this episode of The Path of Power is called The Golden Land. Because I had a moment that it's not something you experience very often, or I personally haven't experienced very often, but I had a moment where my lucid dreaming transcended sort of onto a different level, and I saw something that gave me a great deal of comfort. It's difficult to explain. I'm still processing it to a certain extent, to be fair. All I can really say is I was elevated, and for a moment, and a moment was all that was needed, was I sort of almost looked upon a golden land, and it gave me an immense sense of satisfaction, calm, and peace. I'm not going to say what I think the land is. If it would be more pertinent to say that I don't need to give this land a name or to try and reach it again. Having viewed it is enough. It's as though I was engaging with this force, this power, and what I was shown has given me satisfaction, or sort of, let's say there's no, I don't need to try and contact this thing, this place again. I got everything I perhaps needed from seeing it. Now, there are contributing factors where I have to take into account about how my brain works, or how my brain might be working against me. Enough of a conversation to sort of go, well, that explains that. Last night we were with family, and one of the things we were talking about Australia, and you can quite easily sort of translate that into a golden land, and that is perfectly acceptable. In addition, yesterday I had some reasonably good news, so that's enough to sort of really, if anything, it's just like sort of with the current social environment, I would say it's fair that I've had a little bit of anxiety about sort of employment and my job and that, and yesterday there was, let's say, got some news that allows that anxiety to be settled, to be calm. there have been other things going on also, of which, to some extent, I've kind of reached a point where, while there's some things that I might not necessarily be happy with, I accept them. And again, that's sort of something else that, the subconscious might be sort of making manifest in the dream, in the vision. I'm going to call it a vision, just because of the process that goes into, breaking down what I think might have worked to create a pattern, and then the pattern sort of being enough to create a launch point to a greater experience. And that's sort of all these things that sort of I think can be used as arguments for, well, that's just your brain sort of creating a safety net, a pattern. That's fair. At the end of the day, I want to question myself as much as other people might question what I say, or be comfortable in talking about what I'm going to have as my conclusion, and know that I have explored the possibilities as best as I can. Also, in addition, in the past week, while I've been working with Dagaz, I think over the weekend I saw a picture of a set of runes which included the blank rune, and it's sort of looking on the comments, it was I wasn't disappointed in seeing someone pointing out that the blank rune isn't a rune, and I'm inclined to agree. Obviously, when I started my Runic Journey, I had the Ralph Bloom set, which has a blank rune. And funnily enough, perhaps as part of the building towards this vision, I did dream about sort of emptying a bookshelf and sort of seeing a copy of the Ralph Bloom book and sort of going, oh, I've got that book too. So that's been on my mind. The one thing of seeing the picture of the runes is that you can question at least I do, I question my ability with the runes. And one of the things that I did looking at this picture was just sort of went through them all, naming them all. And that sort of little sort of, I don't know, self-testing sort of process, which I was very sort of, I don't know, content with, because after at least a year now, I should know what the runes are by looking at them, etc., etc., and being able to name them successfully. And it also leads to thinking about other things that you experience, and there are these sort of processes where you invoke the runes, sort of things will happen. How do they happen? Well, it's going to be different for the different people and the way you choose to work with the runes. It's why really I'm hesitant to sort of put specific names on practices, because I don't want to. It's just there's been a lot of information lost. There's been a lot of information sort of twisted or warped or taken for granted, and they're all sort of highly debatable sort of areas to practice or to talk about. And my journey that obviously I share, is how we can tap into, or how I can tap into the runes and have a relationship with them. And it feels very much like almost sort of I don't know, a confirming sort of suspicion, or to some extent, that if you go through the runes by rote, or just sort of name them, that by naming them, by sort of connecting to them in that way, you will open up possibilities for the runes to work with you. So these also are aspects that just come into the vision, and it feels to some extent that the Golden Land is like something that's almost beyond, or is a stage that you might attain, or at least view, going through or experiencing the well. As I said, I'm still working this out for myself, but want to sort of record something for, prosperity, for my own recollections, and sort of working out, processing the experience, so that at a later date I might refer back to this and not have logicked myself out of it, or at least can acknowledge some of the logic processes I have taken sort of in the early aftermath of the vision. In addition, I should say, it was a frosty morning this morning, and Marnie looked quite handsome in the sky as Suna was rising. I don't think it can be sold short, the unrealised potential and influence of the moon. They're just some things that, it's difficult to understand. There's no sort of map book in working these things out. And again, that brings me to another sort of conclusion, if you like, in that what works for one person might not work for you. We can follow teachings or conversations that people might happily talk you through. But when you're connecting to something, I feel at the moment in particular that it is something you have to sort of negotiate for yourself with that power. And yes, it might well be sort of, if you follow the advice of, people that are much wiser or much more experienced with these kind of things, what they tell you can get you so far. However, I truly feel like building a relationship with the gods, what is needed is your interpretation, your decision to connect properly. For example, really, it's just that we can all offer mead. I quite like to pour some into a fire if we're doing something. And an offering of mead, everyone does that in some way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I do feel is if you do it in a particular way, or if you offer something else because it means more to you and your relationship with the gods, then that will work, or it should work better. It might not, but you are giving something of yourself that's not just copying other people. Not copying other people. You are showing your thought process. You are showing your consideration. At the end of the day, and I always hold this in my practice or our practice, is I make no demands of the gods. I'm not one who is comfortable to say, the gods are here, we've summoned them, they're here, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that works for other people, and I'm not dismissing it. My own personal choice is to offer hospitality, and if we experience something, that's great. But I make no demands of the gods or the land wights or the ancestors. They're invited. If something happens, great. We'll say thank you and hope that, the hospitality was appreciated, even if it wasn't taken up, and continue sort of working in that way. And I can also accept that maybe that is wrong. Maybe, some of these powers want to see you being strong, to make demands. It comes down to personal belief and how things work for you. For me, personally, I'll invite them. I make no demands of them. That's also why I wear a token for Odin. I don't wear a Mjolnir. It's not because I don't want to, or that I think they're gaudy or predictable. Not at all. I mean, it's just that there's a lot of good Mjolnirs out there. Some of the simple ones are fantastic. It's just, I don't feel a particularly close connection to Thor. It's not that I don't want to. And what I understand wearing a Mjolnir to represent as like protection is, well, if I'm okay. I'm not saying I wouldn't like Thor's protection. It's just I know there are a lot of people in need that will benefit from his protection. So I don't expect him to sort of be answering to me or to be making a request of him without great need. So I've rambled on a little bit away from the vision. So the vision has given me, let's say, calm, acceptance, peace, an insight, wonder, and I'll continue to question my sanity. However, I can also, take from it a deep sort of comfort for progressing along the path of my faith and my path of power. So thank you very much if you've listened to me waffle and ramble. Feel free to comment if comment is what you wish to do, and I will see you in a video tomorrow for New Rune Day. Cheers. Goodbye.